Beloved, the natural disaster that is currently taking place in North Carolina and the Appalachians and on the East Coast right now is of biblical proportions. The mainstream media is not covering it hardly at all. When I click on there, all I see them talking about is the filthy sodomites of Hollywood and P. Diddy, and not about the people that are dying of thirst and starving and just suffering terribly. If you haven't followed this or know what's going on or just out of the loop, I encourage you to go on and look at some videos on X or on TikTok. It seems like the only place where you can actually get information on this. I'm getting firsthand information because 3 of the war band members are in the mix right now, and I'm getting real live intel. I just got the list. This is called the Urgent New Critical Front Supply List, Immediate Frontline Supply Needs. Now, this gives us a really rare opportunity today to learn the lessons that are being, I guess, learned right now in real time about what people really need and what is essential. What is the essential equipment when you're really in the mix? And I've laid everything out here. We're going to go over these items. They're in 5 categories, and then I'll give you my final thoughts, and I'll give you some options for those of you who are interested in donating money as well as time or any of your special skills. So let's jump into category number 1. We're going to go into the tools that is on the urgent frontline list. None of this is my think so. These are the actual items on the critical need list. This is not by any means comprehensive. This is just what they're asking for, and you would do very well to wake up and pay attention to this and make sure you have these things in your items, because this is what is lacking. Chainsaw tools. Chainsaw tools, primarily chainsaw wrenches, files, and sharpening systems. There are so many trees. It's a heavily wooded area that there are people that are still trapped, going on a week now, that have no access, and they won't for weeks, maybe even months, because of downed trees. And for lack of a chainsaw, for lack of a sharpener, they're trapped in there with no food and no water, and it is absolutely getting dire. So have yourself a good set of files. It's interesting, they also asked for, in addition to files, was chainsaw chains. 20-inch bars seem to be the most popular. Now, we run bigger bars than that out here, obviously, but I just found that interesting. Chainsaw chains of both pitches, of the 3/8 and the smaller ones, they should have them. They're really, really desperate for them. As well as bar oil and mix. They seem to have gasoline. I didn't see that on the list, but they definitely had a need for bar oil and mix, as well as leather gloves and chainsaw safety chaps. You know, you get a lot of people, especially professional homeowners, that don't spend a lot of time cutting. You know, you really hurt yourself and get into a bad situation. So having chainsaw chaps is really essential for running that type of equipment. But as far as tools go, this is what they're requesting right now. Also on the critical list is shovels. Square point for cleaning up, scooping mud, and a round point. There are actually volunteers and local folks that are digging their neighbors out of mudslides by hand. It's sad to say that we can send billions or hundreds of billions over to Ukraine and to Israel, but when it comes to our own people and our own needs, it's left to the people of the local community to offer support. It is, I guess, that's just the world that we live in now. I've been telling you for years, they're not coming to save you. You're going to have to take these steps for yourself. Perfect example, as we move into the next thing, is one thing it's a real critical need is generators. Generators and power banks, battery banks, whether it be gas or electric solar generators with solar panels like the EcoFlow here. I was talking to the middlemen, and which, you know, they're all equipped. One of them was telling me that because of a video that I did, that they invested in a 100-gallon fuel cube. He said that when he bought it, his wife got mad at him. But now that they've been running their generator, and because they have that fuel cube, they're able to keep their refrigerators, freezers running. They have running water, all of that. That's what I'm saying, is that these things are really important. And if you think that someone's going to come and save you, you get on a mass scale, or devastation on a mass scale like this. And if you live rurally, you know, we were told by the Red Cross not too long ago, by emergency managers in our area here, if we had the big earthquake that they've been predicting forever, that we could probably expect 6 months to a year before we would even see any help, and that's if the bridges were out. So that's how long you'd have to sustain yourself. So really take heed. Also, there's been a lot of concerns about security risks with those guys that are running gas generators. One of the comments was made to one of my buddies was, well, I guess we know who's prepared or where we're going to go to get supplies, because that gas generator is just running and just screaming the whole time, and it's a red flag for everyone around that hasn't prepped, that you've thought of it and you've probably got supplies. So having a backup system like a solar generator, a solar panel, these can charge all the things that you want, and they're absolutely silent. So that, to me, is going to be critical, is to have the ability to charge your radios and phones. Communication has been a big, big problem, and that's what we'll move into next. The lack of communications has been a huge, huge problem right now. It's just absolutely heartbreaking watching the videos of family members that are not able to get in touch, especially with elderly relatives that have been isolated, that live in small towns. They have no way of getting hold of them. Self-service is down, and they're completely in the dark. And the worst thing in life is just not knowing, because your mind automatically assumes the worst. So having good, reliable communications. Evan from Radio Made Easy, bless him, has been giving radios out to search and rescue teams from his own personal stock. I'm going to put a link down below to his website. If you want to help contribute to that, Mrs. W and I are sending money to these charities to help them with that. He's programming them. Him and his whole family are making it possible for these search and rescue teams, these private citizens that are doing the hard work, to stay in touch with one another, because the cell phones are absolutely out. So man, you got to get these radios, gentlemen. You got to get the radios. You got to get one of these 3 radio kits, put them together. You've got one for your family. You can hand one out to a neighbor. You can set up watch. I watched a video from one guy that was living in a rural area, and there was a Ryder truck parked out in front of his long driveway, just sitting out there. Now he's got no power, no cell service. He's isolated in a rural town. He drives out there into his quad, confronts the guy, and he makes up some story about, oh yeah, I'm waiting for someone, I'm here to deliver a package. Well, he said, I've got no package coming. The guy took off down the road. He got on his radio, was able to call his neighbor, which they stay in communication with each other, and they met in the middle and boxed this guy in, and he went around and ran off. Probably a looter. So those guys were able to communicate and form a perimeter and have kind of a little bit of security, because they had got these radios. I would personally do this. I would also look at getting a scanner. If you got a scanner, like this one that I bought, what was this? This is the Uniden, the Bearcat. You're able to at least hear the radio traffic. You can pick up what the hams are broadcasting and find out what's going on, at least know, even if you can't communicate. But at minimum, I would have a pair of, or a trifecta of those radios, because not being able to communicate with your family and no cell phones, I mean, you just have no idea how scary that is. Also, 2 other electronic items that are on the critical list. One of them kind of surprised me, was they were asking for carbon monoxide sensors. I thought, why would they want that of all the things? And I realized, well, they're all running gas generators, and people die every year. I used to be a career firefighter. I was an engineer, and I know of cases where folks during power outages took their generators, rolled them outside in front of the garage door, and thought that that would be good, but the whole family suffocated from carbon monoxide, because the cold air intakes sometimes are in the garage, and the furnace is in the garage. It sucked all that exhaust in there and put the whole family to sleep, and they never woke up. So having carbon monoxide sensors is on the critical list, as well as batteries, and they just said all types. So have a good selection of batteries. I just don't know how many times I can go over this. AA, AAA, CR123s, 9 volts, that's going to be for your detectors, and I would even have Ds and Cs, because some of the older folks are going to have those antiquated flashlights, and just have a full set. When next time you go to Costco, just load up on the 50-pack of all the brands and just put them away, and one and done, and you're good. Next up, also kind of surprised me, which was cleaning supplies. These are the cleaning supplies that made the critical frontline list, what they're asking for. Disinfectant spray bottles, something like a Simple Green, something to clean, because if you can't disinfect, you can clean up the mud and you can wash the walls down with water, but you got to disinfect, or what's going to come is mold and disease, and once you have that, then you really have a problem. So cleaning supplies, bleach, shop towels was on there, as well as brooms and dustpans. And that's something that I wouldn't have really thought of and considered. But if you're trying to clean up your house and you don't have these things, or they've washed away, who knows what. I don't know. As I said, this is not my list. I'm just showing you the things that they're putting on there. This is what they're asking for, and this is what's important to them right now. As well as drum liners, trash bags for it's just terrible what's going on over there. I've been watching on TikTok some of the frontline stories from the linemen that are going in, and the linemen are actually going into some of these places for the very first time, and they're saying that the stench of the decay, and you can imagine what that is from people and animals, is just overwhelming. What the body count will be when everything is said and done, it's hard to imagine. But for various reasons, trash bags, drum liners, a place to put this stuff, things that are contaminated, as well as big tarps. Tarps are so essential. We're coming into wintertime, and that thousands of these houses have had trees fall on them. They've got holes in their roof. If you can get up there with a chainsaw, if you can get that off there and get that whole patch before you get a bunch of extra water and stuff in there, that can make the difference between your house being inhabitable or infested with mold. So tarps and trash bags and drum liners. And the other thing that they asked for was small bottles of propane and large 20-pound bottles and regular bottles. Most people have camp stoves, most people have lanterns, but they hadn't bought enough of these, and there's an urgent need for propane, as well as traffic cones, which I thought was kind of funny. But then when I saw the streets and I saw how many hazards that the local folks had to navigate, that made sense too, to be able to put a traffic cone. They asked for traffic cones, and they asked for marking ribbon, where they could mark hazards. You know, people are going to be coming in at night, there's no power, there's no street lights in the rural areas, and one wrong mistake and you can get yourself over the edge of a cliff, everything's washed out. So I found that interesting as well, traffic cones. And I will add this, whenever you have marking tape, always have a Sharpie with you. Marking tape really stands out, and if you tie a bunch of this stuff around a tree, if you need to leave a message for someone, most people will stop and investigate it. And you can write right on this with the Sharpie, you can give a message and it gets a lot of people's attention. So I found that very interesting as well. Also, the last two things on the list were water containers. Water containers and the way to filter the water. All of their water is contaminated. I mean, these people are in dire straits. I heard the statistic this morning that they're going through 10,000 cases of water per day just in 3 counties, and that is not enough. So to be able to have some long-term storage, store it in your bathtub, but you should have about 6 of these jerry cans, and on the eve of any sort of a hurricane or tornado, make sure that stuff is full. Make sure it's full and filled up. And then finally, blankets. Blankets and warm clothing. People's things have washed away. There's stories of little kids walking around naked looking for their parents. I mean, it is the most pitiful, tragic thing in the world, and no one is talking about it outside of the 2 sources that I shared with you. It's just unbelievable. So have some wool blankets and some extra clothing. We're coming into fall, and my heart just breaks for those families. I mean, can you imagine, just imagine having your whole life, your house washed off its foundations, and there you're standing there in the wreckage. What do? Do you even have a car to live in? I mean, it's just unimaginable, unimaginable. Let me close with a few links of some folks that are working hard over there. If you have the ability to donate or donate special time or skills, there's a few that are really in need, and let me get that listed and I'll cover that now. I'm going to share 3 organizations with you that all 3 of them that I personally vouch for. We are donating, Mrs. W is actually doing it right now, donating to these 3. First off is going to be Evan at Radio Made Easy. He is offering radios to search and rescue and to the local folks out of his own supply. He's not asked for this, and I don't mean to embarrass him. He's never asked. We're offering this. I would like to put his site up there. Mrs. W asked him if he had a PayPal or anything like that, and if he does have one, I will put it in the link with the 3. But we're going to make sure that we get some assistance over there for what he's doing, as well as Grindstone Ministries. Now, you guys know Bear or TJ from Refuge Medical. They have a nonprofit, Grindstone Ministries, where they do tremendous outreach and work. This is something that I'll personally vouch for. Mr. Jiraiya wrote some things down here for me, gave me some updates. What they're really in need of right now is that they have links from Amazon and Sam's Club. Look below in the description. I'll also pin it to the top comment of things that they're really in need for it. And they've got it set up. If you have the ability to help out, that these things will go directly to them at the front lines where they can use them, and they're changing that and putting that up as they need. Of course, always cash is helpful in that situation, but they also need people. And this isn't a fly-by-night organization. They have a lot of top-tier people. They're recognized by local counties, and they are legitimate. And if you're going to be donating time or resources to this, it's going to go to the cause and not get gobbled up in administration somewhere. These are guys that are just salt of the earth, and I'll personally vouch for them. They need equipment operators. If you have a skid steer, if you have any sort of a backhoe with a thumb, anything that would be good for tree or brush removal, a mini excavator, and that you're a competent operator, there's an avenue for you to tie in with them and to deploy right now and put that to use. I'll tell you, North Carolina is so far away from where we're at. I was telling Mr. Jariah, I mean, I would go as far as the western slope of the Rockies, load up some equipment, go over there. But just going to North Carolina, the logistics for us, it's just too much. It's too much for us. I wish I was closer. So equipment operators, radio specialists. If you're a communication guy or if you're a ham, they really need people that can help facilitate that. Their cell phones are out, and that's a big problem, and there's a big hole in their ministry right now. As well as doctors and nurses, fit ones. You got to be able to hike. You got to be able to grab a medical bag and a backpack, and you might be able to have to go in 5, 10, 15 miles and offer relief to these folks that are completely landlocked and are going to be. They're running out of water and food before rescuers are going to be able to get there and help them. And it really seems to be falling on the shoulders of the local people and folks like Evan, as well as Bear over there at Grindstone Ministry. Also the third, a personal one, our friend Josh over at Primitive Woodsman. You might have heard me talk about Primitive Woodsman. He's a small manufacturer. He lost half of his shop in a mudslide. He's the one that's been working on our EDC knife that we're excited to put together. He's in a real desperate state. He's working outside, and Mr. Jason Barr, one of the my middlemen of my moderators, has set up, I don't know if it's a GoFundMe or if it's some way to send some relief to his family. He had insurance, and apparently there was a clause in there that they said, we're not going to pay out because we don't cover mudslides, and mudslide took out half of everything that they have there, and it's just tragic. I know times are tough. I get it. But I know also there are people that have a little bit of extra in their hearts. They want to give and to help out these people and help with their suffering. So sometimes it's hard to know where to spend it and where to put it. You want to make sure that you're being responsible and it's going to go to the cause. These three organizations and these people that I'm referring to, I know personally, and I'll personally vouch for them, and they're over there doing the work themselves, and we're just grateful for that. So I thought that this was very interesting. It's very insightful for us to see, what's in need and really what takes place in a disaster. And I'm trying to get a dual stream set up with some guys that are on the ground, and we can kind of get some feedback. There's also, I'll close with this, there's also been looting. There's been a problem with looting, and personal protection is important as well. If I had to pick two items, if you don't have firearms, I would get a Glock 19 and I would get an 870 Remington shotgun with 100 rounds and a couple hundred rounds for the 9mm and 3 magazines, and I would have a light on both of them, and I would know how to use them. If I was only going to have two in a situation like that, that's what I would have. An 870 police magnum and a double-aught buck, 100 rounds, maybe a box of slugs, and that 9mm with at least 3 magazines and a proper holster. I would have that. I would have that. I would have that. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, as well as the folks struggling over on the East Coast. We'll see you guys on the next video.